Hey guys, what's going on? Jeb here, and in today's video, we're going to be doing a little bit of technical analysis on Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency markets, and more specifically, we're going to continue talking about the Bitcoin rally that Bitcoin finds itself in here over the last week or so, because Bitcoin is exerting and showing a lot of bullishness over the last week or so, and Bitcoin does seem to be continuing to move to the upside. Now guys, you know I've been out of town for the last couple of days, and I did greatly enjoy myself, but I am glad to be back, and while I was gone, Bitcoin has gone and established some very bullish trends here. All of this price action happened while I was several hundred miles from my home. Bitcoin did go ahead and break bullish out of that consolidation pattern that we talked about on the last topical video, and Bitcoin has been trending to the upside as I kind of thought it would, as we've seen a lot of bullish strength here over the last couple of weeks. There's much that we need to discuss in today's video to get caught up. There's many different signals coming out of our oscillators. There's many different pieces of technical analysis that we need to look at, and for one, I also need to change this color over to blue, but I'll do that right now. But also with that, we also have some news because there have been 3 new coins added to Coinbase Pro that I want to discuss. And we also have a bit of news coming from China moving to ban Bitcoin mining. Yes, once again, this is not the first time this has happened. But anyway, guys, we do have a lot to get into in today's video. So without much further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it, guys. Bitcoin is currently trading around $5,203 or so. Like I said, over the last couple of days, Bitcoin did go ahead and break bullish out of this consolidation pattern that I drew. Just as we thought, I think I gave it a 60% chance of breaking bullish when I left, and we did see that break bullish just a few hours after I left home, after that video was recorded, in fact, and we have been trending to the upside. And while I was gone, we have continued to establish this uptrending level of support right here. Very, very important level of support that we are now seeing Bitcoin hold, and it's holding it pretty firm. As you can see, Bitcoin has come down and tried to test this level of support several times. We've had wixes come down here and fall below that level, but very quickly, Bitcoin has managed to get back up above that level. The buyers have come in and defended that level. Bitcoin has not broken that support, and that's a very strong thing because Bitcoin is now using that support to continue moving to the upside here. And as Bitcoin has been continuing to move to the upside here, we've actually seen something interesting form. If you guys remember, I do have a couple of resistance lines up here that we've been looking at for Bitcoin up around $5,400 and $5,500 respectively. I've expected both of those to be 2 very important levels of resistance, and it turns out about $50 lower than that, right here around $5,350 or so. Right here, that just so happens to turn out to be one of our major resistance levels that Bitcoin has actually now double topped at. As we can see, before I left, Bitcoin was over here and set a top, and over the last couple of days, Bitcoin has set 2 more tops up here. You could almost call this a triple top. For the sake of simplicity, we're going to call it a double top. We have seen Bitcoin come up here and establish this level quite firmly, and that actually forms an interesting pattern here. We've been looking at a pennant over here on Bitcoin after we broke out, and we were expecting a bullish break, and we saw it. But now, since Bitcoin has established a double top up here, Bitcoin is actually in an ascending triangle pennant on this tiny little flagpole over here. Very, very interesting move on Bitcoin. Typically, you don't see a pennant of this size following a rally of this size. Now, this is a gigantic rally, but proportionally, this is a massive, and I do mean massive, pennant over here, but it is what we're seeing, and Bitcoin is currently trading below this level of resistance up here and above this uptrending level of support. Now, of course, we do have a couple other levels of support. One level of support that I'd be looking at is right here. That is, of course, the wrong color again, but there we go. Right here around $5,135 or so, and right down here around $4,800. Both of these, I suspect, will be important levels of support. As you can see, we have levels right there, and we also have touches with trading around there, there. We see that these are probably going to be strong levels of support should Bitcoin break bearish. And that's one of the things I want to discuss in today's video is which direction is Bitcoin going to break out of this consolidation pattern, because it's most likely that Bitcoin is going to break either bullish or bearish here over the next couple of days, probably before these 2 lines collide on themselves and come together in about 2 days on the 11th of April. So is Bitcoin going to break bullish or bearish? That's part of the question for today's video. Well, to answer that question, we're going to want to zoom out and start looking at some more technical indicators. Of course, we do have a lot to discuss. One of the ones that I want to point out is indeed the daily MACD out here on the Bitcoin chart. As you can see, the histogram curved and flattened out actually over the last couple of days while I was away, because these 2 lines were moving upwards at the exact same rate. They weren't curving in on themselves. That's what the histogram shows, of course. It does show the distance between the MACD line and the signal line. And now we've actually seen it start to curve in on itself, but you have to keep in mind that the MACD is still remarkably bullish, and that's probably going to give us quite a bit of bullishness, at least for the next couple of days days, maybe the next 3 or 4 days before that starts curving in on itself. Since Bitcoin is still up here in definitely overbought territory, but up here in these really high price levels, it is going to allow Bitcoin's MACD to be very bullish, especially considering Bitcoin has continued to trend to the upside. Now, one thing I also talked about before I left that I want to mention again is the daily RSI. As you can see, Bitcoin's RSI is sitting in major overbought territories, and if we look back over here into history, the last time that Bitcoin saw RSI this high was back in December of 2017, and you guys all remember what happened in December of 2017, and that was the end of the bull market. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that we are coming into the end of a bull market or anything. I mean, we're not even in a bull market just yet, so we can't obviously be ending one, but I do want to bring to your attention the importance of Bitcoin's RSI on the daily chart being above 80. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind is that the market can stay above these levels and stay in overbought territory for a very long time. Much longer than you might sometimes expect. A lot of times for example, back over here in 2017, I remember this vividly, Bitcoin was running up here and just kept rallying and rallying and rallying and moving to the upside, and it just wouldn't quit. And Bitcoin's RSI was overbought. It was up here above 70 and just kept moving to the upside. And we kept expecting, okay, there's going to be a pullback at $8,000. There's going to be a pullback at $10,000, at $15,000. Bitcoin ran all the way to $20,000 because one thing you have to keep in mind is, like I've said many times, the RSI and these other oscillators, they are not crystal balls. They are mathematical equations. And sometimes what you will find is that Bitcoin's RSI can stay in overbought territory for quite a long time. So it's not necessarily surprising that Bitcoin's RSI is still up here. And this doesn't necessarily indicate that we're going to see a pullback in the next 24 hours or anything. But with all of that said, the RSI being in overbought territory, sitting up around 85, it does mean that we're likely going to see some kind of sideways movement to reset the RSI, because perfectly sideways movement can bring the RSI down to 50, or we're going to see some kind of correction in the next week. So I do think that Bitcoin's going to be bullish over the next couple of days, but we very well and probably definitely will actually see some kind of pullback or at least consolidation coming in about a week or so. So watch out for that. One thing I also want to point out is the daily stochastic RSI. It's sitting up here above 90. We haven't seen this start to curve down yet, so watch out for that. One thing I also want to mention is the weekly stochastic RSI. We've seen that weekly stochastic RSI on Bitcoin has stayed up here at 100 for quite some time. We've been up here for about a month now. And same thing with stochastic RSI is true as for with RSI. Just because stochastic RSI is up here and in massive overbought territory does not necessarily mean that we have to see a correction. But what it does mean is that we're probably going to sometime soon. So what I don't want you guys to do is to go, I mean, you can do whatever you want, of course, you have your own free will, and this is not financial advice, all that legalese crap. What I don't want you guys to do is go and start shorting Bitcoin right now just because it seems like there's going to be some kind of correction in the next couple of days. Probably the next week or so. I think we're going to be bullish for the next couple of days, the next 3-4 days maybe. But be careful about just going and shorting the market because we're overbought on stochastic RSI or RSI, because what you'll find is that those oscillators can stay in overbought territory for longer than you might expect. An example that I've shown you guys several times is back over here. In November of 2016, Bitcoin's stochastic RSI stayed in overbought territory for 2 months. We've seen it only up here for about a month right now, and Bitcoin was quite bullish during that time. That's why the RSI was up there. So what you want to look for is not the RSI being overbought. You want to start looking for the RSI and Stoch RSI to start curving down, and then you can use that as a actual signal that we might be seeing some kind of bearishness coming, and then you can start placing your trades. Don't try and place your trades just because the RSI or Stoch RSI is overbought. Watch out for that, because I see people do that a lot and it does end up hurting you oftentimes. Anyway, one thing I also want to look at is the Heikin Ashi charts. Let's go ahead and look at Heikin Ashi on the daily chart, and as we can see, it is looking remarkably bullish. As you guys know, we have a video on CT2A talking about Heikin Ashi, how to use Heikin Ashi candlestick charts, and it's a very good video in my opinion because I combine Heikin Ashi with another indicator that ends up giving you almost perfect signals. The signal in that video is just remarkable. If you guys are interested, there's still that sale going on. I think I'm going to extend that another 24 hours, so if you're interested, check the link in the description. But one thing you see in Heikin Ashi is that the more bullish the market is, the less likely it is that you're going to see lower wicks. I know the plural of that is wick. I know, I get that. Anyway, one thing you often see on Heikin Ashi charts is that when the market is quite bullish, you don't see these lower wickses. You don't see them. And what we see right now is that Bitcoin hasn't seen a lower wick on the Heikin Ashi chart in quite some time. The last time we saw a lower wick was back over here on the first day of April on April Fool's. We got Aprilly fooled by the Heikinashi. Is that a way to say April Fool's? Aprilly fooled. If you guys haven't seen the April Fool's video I did, go back and watch it. I'm very happy with it. But anyway, the thing I wanted to mention was that daily Heikinashi charts on Bitcoin here have been bullish for quite some time, ever since the 27th of March. And that does actually lend bullishness to Bitcoin, but it also does lend credence to the argument that we may be seeing a correction in the next week or so, because obviously, guys, like we've said, markets are cyclical. They tend to move in cycles, and when we've been moving up for a very long time, it's likely that you're going to see some kind of move to the downside. Now, with all that said, we've analyzed the MACD, the RSI, Stochastic RSI, all that stuff. We've looked at, let's go ahead and look at some moving averages, actually. Let's get our candles back on. One thing that we do see, of course, is that Bitcoin is still above the 200 daily moving average. I'm very happy to see that. And Bitcoin is still far above the 20 exponential daily moving average. Both of these are important levels of support that I like seeing Bitcoin being above. Very bullish for Bitcoin. And we also see that Bitcoin is above the 20 weekly exponential moving average as well. Bitcoin's looking very bullish on the moving averages, which is why I kind of left them for last, and I actually kind of forgot about them because we've been discussing them so much, and they aren't really showing us a whole lot right now. But the point I'm trying to make with you guys is that based on all the technical analysis that I can do here, based on the sentiment of the market, and based on the fact that Bitcoin has been trending upwards here for the last couple of days and has retained that strength while I was away, I do think that we're probably going to see a little bit more bullishness coming out of Bitcoin before anything else. I do think there's still bullish exuberance in the market. I was a little concerned about it over here when Bitcoin was trending to the downside, but the fact that Bitcoin broke bullish, continued moving up, and especially established this uptrend of support, I very much like seeing that. Especially because of that, I do think that we're going to see some more bullishness coming out of Bitcoin, and it wouldn't surprise me if Bitcoin actually broke bullish here, guys. I don't necessarily believe that Bitcoin is ready to go all the way back up to $6,000, but I wouldn't be all that surprised at the moment if Bitcoin did decide to go ahead and break bullish here. It wouldn't surprise me very much. Now, we've seen Bitcoin come up here and establish this double top, but the fact of the matter is Bitcoin has this uptrend of support pushing it into this into this level of resistance. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if we saw some bullishness coming out of Bitcoin in the next 3 to 4 days at most. Now, luckily, these two trend lines cross themselves over here in about 2 days, so that does leave room for us to have this breakout bullishly in the bullish direction. I don't think bullishly is an actual word yet, but either way, I do still think we have room for one more bullish breakout, and then I think we're going to see a correction. I think we're going to see a decent-sized correction, actually. Bitcoin has been moving to the upside quite substantially here, and unless we actually have just started the bull market, which I don't think we have done just yet, unless we have actually done that, I think we are going to have to see some kind of correction to allow the bears to reestablish their dominance for a little while, get some of that strength back, let the bulls calm down for a little bit, and then in a month or two, we'll go ahead, I shouldn't say a month or two, in the next 6 months or so, we'll probably see a Bitcoin bull market be starting and be confirmed with some of those indicators that I showed you in a previous video. Anyway, guys, that is going to do it for the technical analysis, but let's go ahead and get on to some news. This one is going to be a little bit brief because you guys know it's kind of just, there's not a whole lot to talk about. It's kind of just read the headline, you know what happened. Bitcoin and, not Bitcoin, Coinbase Pro has gone ahead and added EOS, Maker Token, and REP to their cryptocurrency platform, Augur. And this is definitely a positive development if you're a fan of any of these cryptocurrencies. I'm personally a fan of EOS, and I do hold quite a bit of it. I'm a very big fan of EOS. In fact, if you guys remember to when I used to do more altcoin technical analysis, I quite often did technical analysis on EOS because EOS was sitting above a very long-term uptrend of support that I really enjoyed and really liked seeing EOS bounce off of. This was some very, very lovely looking market structure, and of course, because of the bear market, Bitcoin broke it. EOS broke it and moved to the downside. But now EOS is actually looking quite bullish indeed, and I definitely do have a position in it. I do like EOS, and I am happy to see that it is on Coinbase Pro. Now, guys, I actually brought this up partially for the headline because I want to talk about Coinbase, not necessarily these cryptocurrencies that are being added here. This is literally the entire article, so you can pause the video and read it if you would like, or you can go and find this. It's on investinblockchain.com. You can go and find this article, but basically it's just talking about the cryptocurrencies being added to Coinbase. But the point I'm trying to make here with this is actually that I see a lot of companies, a lot of YouTubers also, I'm doing this as well, and a lot of organizations and groups in the cryptocurrency market gearing up for the next Bitcoin bull run. I think a lot of people, especially the institutional people in the cryptocurrency market, I'm not talking about stock market institutions, I'm talking about cryptocurrency institutions like Coinbase, a lot of exchanges. I think what they're doing, and I think what they realize, is that a Bitcoin bull market is coming, and that's going to be very good for business, and it's going to allow for a time of massive expansion. I see a lot of companies right now, a lot of YouTubers also, which do count as companies actually, a lot of people in the cryptocurrency space that have invested interest in not just investing in Bitcoin, not just like you and me, but also have companies in the cryptocurrency space. I see a lot of people preparing for the Bitcoin bull market. I see a lot of them setting themselves up and positioning themselves for what will happen when the next Bitcoin bull market starts. Because I think a lot of these institutional people, a lot of these people like Mike Novogratz, for example, the people behind Coinbase, all the people, I almost said Xi Jinping, not Xi Jinping, CZ over at Binance. I see a lot of people in the cryptocurrency markets getting ready for that. And I think that's a very important signal to look out for, is when the people that do this for a living and work 8, 10, 12 hours a day on cryptocurrency products, when they are preparing for a Bitcoin bull market, it's probably for a good reason. And I do see a lot of these companies doing that. So guys, that might be a signal that we're going to be seeing a bull market, even if all of our other technical signals wouldn't do that. I do like to see all of these companies seemingly preparing for a Bitcoin bull run by positioning themselves in such a way that they will have enough market dominance, if you will, to make the most out of the next Bitcoin bull run. That's just kind of a thought I had when I saw this article, and I wanted to share it with you. But of course, guys, if you're a fan of any of these three cryptocurrencies, you're probably going to be a fan of this development. So there you go. Merry Christmas in, what month is it? April. Merry Christmas in April. Anyway, guys, we have a little bit more news to get on to. Bitcoin is now being considered to be banned in China. I've never heard that happen before. I've never heard China say anything about banning Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. That is 100% sarcasm and only about 1% salt. Guys, China has been talking about banning Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and stuff for a very long time. When I got into the market back in July of 2017, back over here when Bitcoin ran up to $5,000, China was talking about banning Bitcoin, and everybody was freaking out. And part of the reason Bitcoin crashed so hard, or arguably part of the reason Bitcoin crashed so hard, is because people were worried about what China was going to do. Guys, China has been talking about banning Bitcoin for like 5 years. This is not a new thing. And now they're talking about banning Bitcoin mining. So let's go ahead and read here. According to a recent report, China's National Development and Reform Commission, NRDC, formerly known as the State Planning Commission, is seeking public opinion on a list of industries that it intends to eliminate, restrict, or encourage. And this threw up a red flag very quickly, because the whole idea of public opinion in China is not something that really seems all that accurate. There's a government body in China that is there's a governmental organization in China similar to the United States Congress that is pretty much just a gigantic rubber stamp. I don't really understand why the Chinese government would be seeking public opinion. They never really seem to care all that much about that. But either way, I'm not going to get too deep into my political opinions on China. I think a lot of them are founded, though. Anyway, reading on here, reportedly Bitcoin mining as well as let's not do that, as well as 450 other activities should be prohibited because, this is the funny one, they did not adhere to relevant laws and regulations. I'll talk about that in a second. Were unsafe wasted resources, that's a sentence, or polluted the environment. Guys, I don't know how much you know about China, but a lot of people know China specifically for the pollution in China. And one thing I want to point out is that China is trying to reduce the pollution in China because they realize that it's a major public health concern and it's actually being a negative to the economy. That being said, a lot of times when China comes and says that they're doing something for a certain reason, like polluting the environment, or because public opinion said so, or because they did not adhere to relevant laws and regulations, I'll get to that in a second. A lot of times when they say that, they're creating some kind of excuse for why they're trying to do something. And especially the polluted environment one is quite funny, that they are thinking about banning Bitcoin because of its pollution to the environment. Guys, China does quite a bit of things that pollute the environment quite a bit more than Bitcoin mining does. But either way, I find that kind of humorous. And also this one's kind of humorous. They did not adhere to relevant laws or regulations. One thing you have to understand about China is that a lot of times China will actually just straight up ignore their own laws if someone breaking those laws, or if some group breaking those laws, does not threaten the hegemony of the Chinese government. And one thing that I want to point out in this article is that I don't think China is thinking about banning Bitcoin mining because it's polluting the environment, or because they did not adhere to relevant laws and regulations. I think China is thinking about banning Bitcoin and seeking public opinion on banning Bitcoin. I mean, sometimes you don't even have that happen in the United States. I think part of the reason that China is thinking about banning Bitcoin mining here and has been talking about banning Bitcoin for so long is because of what I said a little while ago. Bitcoin is a threat to the hegemony of the Chinese government. China wants nothing more than the interests of China, not the Chinese people, the Chinese government, to be protected. That has always been the history of China. If you go back and look in China, not just after the Communist Revolution in the late 1940s, not even just after that, going back long way into history, oftentimes what you'll find is that China is seeking to protect the interests of China. And I'm not really even making a moral argument about that. I'm just stating a fact. That is the way that China has operated. And one thing that you have to understand about Bitcoin is that Bitcoin is a major threat to just about any government that it comes under the reign of. When you see Bitcoin enter your country, and when Bitcoin starts becoming mass adopted, and when people like Coinbase and these other companies start realizing that a bull market is coming, and in my opinion, when China seems to think that Bitcoin is going to be doing very well, when you see these kind of things happen, governments tend not to like to have their own hegemony threatened. I mean, how often have you seen the United States embrace people using the euro in the United States of America? I've never seen them do that. They want people to use the United States dollar to protect the hegemony of the United States dollar and the power of the United States government. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm not necessarily bashing that. But I am stating that governments don't like it when you threaten their power. And Bitcoin is a threat to the power of every single governmental organization on the planet. And China is definitely one of those. So when we see China thinking about banning Bitcoin or banning Bitcoin mining or restricting exchanges, as we've seen this before. When we see China talking about this, it's probably partially because they can see the writing on the walls. They can see the forest for the trees. And they realize that when Bitcoin does become mass adopted, it's going to be a major threat to them. Because it's going to be much harder for China to regulate and restrict people when you have something like Bitcoin or especially other privacy coins in circulation that people can use. It's a threat to their power. So it would not surprise me if China does try to go through and ban Bitcoin mining or something, as they've done 150 times in the past. It wouldn't surprise me at all because that's the way that China operates. And it also, by the way, not just picking on China, it wouldn't surprise me at all if other governments around the world, other democratic governments around the world, tried to do the same. It wouldn't surprise me if the United States government, for example, tried to crack down on Bitcoin in the next 5 or 10 years. Wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. And that's a sad thing to say, but it wouldn't surprise me at all. So guys, what we need to do is we need to be prepared for the next Bitcoin bull run. We need to make our money, and then we need to be ready to fight for the power of Bitcoin and fight for the future of Bitcoin. I'm not saying physically fight. I'm not necessarily, and not at all actually, insinuating that we need to go and physically fight over anything just yet. I mean, there's always a time for revolution, but we're not there. We're nowhere near there. I'm not saying we need to do anything like that. I'm not saying that. Don't put words in my mouth. What I am saying is that we do need to be prepared because things are going to get interesting in the next bull market. Markets are going to go to the moon, and we do think, and I do think anyway, that governments are going to start taking a real problem with Bitcoin if Bitcoin does start getting mass adopted and companies start using it in the same way that they use traditional currencies like the United States dollar. So guys, there's a lot that we need to be prepared for, and I think we are going to do so. Anyway, guys, I do want to go ahead and mention before we wrap the video up, there is, of course, the sale going on CT2A, April 2019. If you guys are interested in joining the course, we've had a ton of people join while I was gone. Actually, surprisingly, a number of you guys have joined the Cryptocurrency Technical Analysis Academy. I'm very happy to see all of you guys in there and enjoying the content. Guys, remember, we have over 30 videos. We have exactly 30 videos of content here in CT2A and over 8 hours of content. If there's anything that you want to learn about technical analysis in cryptocurrency, it's probably in this course. And if it's not in this course, shoot me an email and I'll probably make a video on it because I'm always looking for new topics and new things to add to CT2A. You guys enjoy when I do that, and I enjoy seeing that you guys are happy with the content. We have a ton of people, hundreds of people in CT2A, and I've never really had any complaints about the course. I've never had anyone say, Jeb, this video doesn't make any sense, or Jeb, this video sucks, or Jeb, you need to do something different. I've never really had anyone do that. We have hundreds of people go through the course, and they are all happy with it. Guys, if I wanted to, and if I wanted to be that kind of guy, I could literally put about 20 or 30 different testimonials that I've gotten from people emailing me, shooting me messages in the Discord server, in DMs on Discord, in comment sections of the YouTube channel, in the comment section of CT2A here, talking about how much they love the course. So guys, if you're interested in learning about technical analysis, if you want to learn about any of the concepts that I've discussed here in today's video, you will find it somewhere in a video here in CT2A. It's all organized from top to bottom, where you can start the course from an absolute beginner, not knowing anything about technical analysis, all the way up to more advanced technical analysis that you can use to make accurate predictions about what the market will do before the market does it, so that you can then, of course, make your money. Anyway, guys, like I said, I'm going to extend that sale another 24 hours because you guys seem to be enjoying it so much. So that sale will be ending midnight Eastern time of Wednesday, but that sale is still going on. The link is in the description, April 2019. I did have one person mention in the comment section that they were having a problem with that coupon code. They said it was, they told me that they were getting an invalid message. If you guys try and use the coupon code and it doesn't work, it should work fine. We've had like over a dozen people use the coupon code in the last 48 hours. If you do have that happen, shoot me an email at cryptojeb@gmail.com. That email is on the about page of the YouTube channel. Shoot me an email and I will make you a custom coupon code, and I will actually get you in the course. I promise. None of that will stop you. Don't worry about it. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. Tell me in the comment section down below what you think of today's video. I am so happy to be back. I had an absolute blast on the trip. I might post a couple of pictures from the trip on the community tab of the YouTube channel. But anyway, guys, this video is going on for way too long, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I do want to thank each and every single one of you for watching as always, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.